Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to Peter Watches TV. And recently I have gotten many requests, mostly on my other channels, for me to do a video talking about all of my thoughts and feelings about Vanderpump Rules. Okay, so let's go back in time a little bit before season 11 premiered. I binge watched all 10 seasons, previous seasons of Vanderpump Rules. And I have to tell you, I loved it. I absolutely loved binge watching Vanderpump Rules. I could not get enough of it. Like every night I was like texting my friends and I was like, oh my God, I'm loving Vanderpump Rules. And I was watching like 4 to 6 episodes a night, kind of like I'm doing right now with The Walking Dead. And I was so excited every single night to watch Vanderpump Rules. And then season 11 started, and, you know, everybody was like, okay, I was getting kind of bored. I think it was like season 8 and season 9. It was after Jax and Kristen and Stassi were kicked off the show for racist comments, and I was kind of bored with 8 and 9, because it kind of like they brought on new people and they didn't really know what to do, but everybody was like, wait, season 10 is really good. And then I watched season 10 and I was like, season 10 is really not that good, and they're like, but it ends on Scandival, and you got to know what's going on with Scandival so that you can go into season 11. So I watched it all, and really, if you go back and you watch, and it's interesting, like, people's emotions and feelings about Vanderpump Rules, but I watched it, like, binge watching it. And I will say this, like, in many conversations I've had with my husband and my best friend, who both avidly have watched Vanderpump Rules throughout the years, they've watched it like in real time. When the episode premiered, they would watch it. I binge watched it. When you watch it and you binge watch it, there's a completely different reaction to it. Like, you have a different feeling about things, because things that happened 6 years ago, you just watched last night, right? And so it was interesting, because when I was talking to my husband, he's like, oh yeah, season 10's a lot about Scandival and stuff. Season 10 really is not that much about Scandival. Actually, the last episode and the first part and the reunion is really all that's about Scandival. The last episode of season 10 of Vanderpump Rules is really where it comes out and everything is addressed with what happened to Scandival. And they pick up the cameras and start rolling again and stuff like that. And then it's all addressed at the reunion. The reunion for season 10 is probably one of the most dramatic seasons ever. But I had a lot of thoughts and a lot of feelings as I was going through watching Vanderpump Rules. And so I wrote down some of them, and I actually haven't visited this in quite some time. I think I made this on February 8th of 2024. So it must have been, or that was the last time I edited it. So it must have been like right around the time that season 11 started to come out. Now, what's interesting about this is that I absolutely loved Vanderpump Rules, right? But season 11 has made me kind of fall out of love with Vanderpump Rules. In fact, the other day I did a video about the Valley, and I said I'm more interested in the Valley, which the first episode of the Valley, I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. And now I'm like completely in love with the Valley, and Vanderpump Rules, if it doesn't come back for another season, I'm totally fine with that. I will tell you, speculating what I really think they thought was going to happen, the executive producers. I think they thought they were going to do this season and focus it all on Scandival, and I think that at some point they thought that Raquel was going to come back, and that was going to be how they were going to end the last episode, and then on season 12 would be about the return of Rachel to Vanderpump Rules. I think that's really what they had in mind. When watching it, it's just like so much. There's a lot of discussion, not just about Tom Sandoval, but about Rachel as well, and that has really nothing to do with the whole Scandival thing, that it's almost kind of like they're setting it up for the return of Rachel, and then I think Rachel was like, I'm not coming back to the show. And so I think that's why where we're at right now with Katie and Ariana have both unfollowed Vanderpump Rules on social media, so it's like maybe they're not going to return. There is rumors that Lala is, which is so interesting. When I started reading my notes, what I said on here in February, before the Valley was even out, Lala Kent is supposedly moving. She's in talks to move over to the Valley, but she will also film on Vanderpump Rules for at least one season. And then Sheena and Brock are supposedly maybe moving over to the Valley as well. I said, and I think it's probably in my notes somewhere, that at some point in watching it, it was around the time that, like, Stassi met Beau, and then they got kicked off the show and all that stuff. I was like, I think that And I have to tell you, I loved Stassi, and oh, my husband just texted me. He's heading home. I loved Stassi, and I loved Beau and Stassi together. Stassi was not my favorite character throughout the entire show of Vanderpump Rules, but in retrospect, she's probably one of my favorite, did I say character or castmates of the show. And I really, really liked her on Vanderpump Rules. And especially with Beau. I felt like Beau brings out the best of Stassi Schroeder. And so, you know, after that, and when Jax and Brittany left and everything, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't have left for the racist allegations that came out. It is interesting to me, though. I'm not saying they shouldn't have left, but the show just kind of was over at that point. What's interesting to me is that they left for these racist allegations, and then Kristen and Jax are both back on the Valley, and Stassi was asked to come back on the Valley and declined. So all three of them were kicked off the show, a Bravo show, for racist allegations, and then they're asked back on. And it's this interesting dynamic that Bravo does. It's like they do it with housewives too, where if a housewife is really problematic one season, they make her sit out a season, come back as a friend. It's like Mary on the Salt Lake City, right? And so we see all that, but then they're asked back, so it's kind of like they get a slap on their wrist and put in time out, but then they come back on. And I think that's probably why now we're seeing a lot of these issues come out with Bravo, because I don't think they deal with these situations appropriately. If you're going to kick somebody off of a show for racist allegations, then they probably never be back on a Bravo show again, period, end of story. I mean, or do you not stick to that now? You know, it's things like that, right? And so I went in here and I took these notes. Now, I will tell you how I feel about Vanderpump Rules. If Vanderpump Rules doesn't come back for a 12th season, no love lost. I actually was thinking the other night, and Tom Sandoval, this was obviously his redemption arc season. They could do a whole show and just call it Tom or Tom and Tom, and have it be Tom Sandoval and Tom Schwartz living in a house together, being single in their 40s, and it would be cringe as shit, but I think people would watch it. So they could do that. And then the Valley is really the spinoff, because in here in my notes somewhere, I think I said they should have done a show, and they should have called it Vanderpump Rules All Grown Up. And then had them all like living it, you know, like it would have been a different show instead of trying to keep this on. Part of what Vanderpump Rules lost was when they took the show out of the restaurant and they're not servers anymore because they're making 6 and 7 figures. You can tell there's a certain point here, I think I wrote a note about it, when they all start carrying like Louis Vuitton and Gucci purses, and it's a different person every single scene. You know, they're driving $100,000 cars, they're moving, they're buying houses. They no longer need to work in the restaurant, so they're not. Well, it lost a lot for that, right? Which I think is why, like, I really like Vanderpump Villa. And I think Vanderpump Villa is Lisa Vanderpump's answer to the dying of Vanderpump Rules. Vanderpump Villa is about this villa that she bought in the south of France, and she's turned it into like kind of like a bed and breakfast, but not really. It's more of like an experience place where a group of people come. It's not like a bunch of guests. It's just one group of people come, and they have like she calls it a curated experience. I'm so tired of the word curated on reality TV. But it reminds me of when I explain it to people, I'm like, it's a mix between Vanderpump Rules, the early days, like the drama, and Below Deck. And I really like it. It's corny as shit, and it seems very scripted, but I really like it. So I think like they should have just like transitioned the people that were in Vanderpump Rules a couple years ago to doing something like they're doing with the Valley now, maybe just called it All Grown Up or something, and restarted Vanderpump Rules with an entirely new cast of people that were working at SUR. Because what they're doing is they're trying, it's just not working. And I won't be sad if there's not another season of Vanderpump Rules, which is so interesting because 6 months ago I was like in it to win it. And now I don't even care if they continue it. I'm so over the show. I feel like this entire season has been about Scandival. I feel like they have totally killed it with the storyline, and I'm just really, really over it. So here are some of my notes that I took while watching it. You guys ready? I have no idea. I didn't go through here and look back at my notes, so I don't know what I said. So let's go in here. I said in here that they should make, this will be kind of interesting, make Lala a housewife, because towards the last couple of seasons, before season 11, she hangs out with Lisa a lot individually, and she's always wanted to see her house, and that's when she's with Randall, and you can tell that like when she like gets with Randall, like Lala is like or gets engaged to Randall, like her life completely changes a lot, and you see Lala in a completely different way. She wants to see the part where she wants to see the house and says there's not much to see when her nursery is bigger than their original apartment. Oh, her nursery at her apartment is bigger than most of their apartments were when their show originally started. I mean, that show that Kristen and Tom Sandoval lived in forever was like a shitty apartment. And Tom lived there forever. I said they should give them their own show. Should have addressed... Oh, I think on the show they should have addressed why they left the show. I think they should have addressed on the show, had the castmates talk about why Kristen, Stassi, and Jax left the show. I think that they talk about everything else. And in fact, Lala said this thing last week. Tonight's the reunion. She said this thing last week that you're on a reality TV show. You sign up for it. Like, you need to share everything that's authentic about your relationships and whatever. And I really liked what Lala had to say. I asked in my last video that I did, like, how much is too much to ask of these reality stars? Like, do we need to know everything about their lives? But I think from the point that Lala was talking about, when your relationship is a major part of the show, like Tom and Ariana, you know? I'm all for setting boundaries, but I did agree with what Lala was saying. Like, you signed up for this. It's not like you didn't know that this is what you were getting yourself into when the cameras came out, right? And so it's interesting to me with that sentiment that they never discussed why Stassi and Kristen and Jax were just gone. It was just like, I mean, there was like a brief conversation, but there was like, that was it. And it was just all new people, and they didn't really talk about them again, right? And then Jax appears in season 11 to promote the Valley. I mean, it's just so weird, right? Then the episode at the very end, and it's like Jax's last episode, where Jax says to Lisa in Tom Tom, he says something about his show, and Lisa goes, that's where you're confused. This is my show. Okay, I'm going to actually differ with that for a second, and this is not a popular opinion. I really like Lisa Vanderpump. I did not like her on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. She was arrogant and rude, but on Vanderpump Rules, she comes across as very soft. She really cares about these kids a lot, or now they're grown adults. She really cares about them. You see a completely different side of Lisa Vanderpump. The reality is, it stopped being Lisa Vanderpump's show, even though she's the executive producer. I know what she means by that. It's her show because she's the executive producer. She's never on the show anymore. Vanderpump Rules could completely exist without Sir, without Pump, without Tom Tom, and without Lisa Vanderpump. If it was just that, they're hardly ever there. I think in the last episode, she like FaceTimed Sheena, or so that she could tell her good luck at her singing, you know, apples at this, you know, what's his name, Kyle Chen's like event or whatever. That's like the last thing that Lisa's been. I mean, she hasn't been on there in a long time. The time before that, they were supposed to have some event with like Jax, and like they never even went into all of that and stuff like that. So Lisa's hardly ever on the show. The reality is, it wasn't really ever Lisa's show, except for that she was the executive producer on it. It was always them that got the. Nobody cared about Lisa on the show. It wasn't. I mean, I was never watching Vanderpump Rules for Lisa Vanderpump. I'm sorry, Lisa. I love you, Lisa. But nobody was watching it. It's like on Vanderpump Villa, like she has no idea the drama that's going on in that house. And she's just like, I'm curating this experience. She has no clue what's going on in the house, period, end of story. And I think it's supposed to kind of be that way. But anyway, and this is where I said Vanderpump Rules. I should have done one called They Grew Up. And they should have done a redone song. This is so funny because I just referenced this in my last video. When I Grow Up, with a redone version of the Pussycat Dolls and recast the original show. That's what they should have done. A couple other things that are interesting to me is like, O'Sheen, that's on Southern Hospitality. Apparently he's not signed on for the next season. Thank God, because I can't stand O'Sheen. O'Sheen is in Vanderpump Rules. This is where I'm like, do they have like a staff of people that they use for reality show to reality show? Because O'Sheen he is at the party at Sheena's house. It's at it's Sheena and Brock are there, and he's a friend of Brock's. He's actually at Sheena and Brock's wedding. They show O'Sheen in there, right? And he grabs Charlie's ass, and he also grabs Emmy's ass on Southern Hospitality. And here he is with sexual harassment on 2 different shows of grabbing women, and he acts like it's no big deal, right? And I'm like, when I saw this, I was like, is this all contrived for television? And why is nobody on Southern Hospitality talking about that he's Sheena and Brock's really good friend? And why is nobody on Vanderpump Rules talking about how O'Sheen at the bartender in Southern Hospitality, both Bravo shows, is a really good friend of Brock's that was in Brock's wedding? Like, they don't even talk about that. And this is where I'm like, it's so contrived at this point that I'm so tired of watching it, because I watch both of those shows. By the way, don't sleep on Southern Hospitality. It's really good, right? But I think the thing is that Southern Hospitality is the response to Vanderpump Rules dying, and they wanted to get people interested in a show that was very similar to that. So they started Southern Hospitality, which is basically Vanderpump Rules, but in Charleston. And not as good. But I still love Southern Hospitality. The second season was fantastic. It's the exact same formula. Lisa was on The Housewives, and Leva, is that her name, was on Southern Charm, and now they did the same thing. It's the same formula, right? And then I put on here, James, a story carried season 9. James has literally and I know that there's like allegations from Rachel out about James now and things like that, but like it was interesting because Katie and Ariana were in Watch What Happens Live, and basically like they just gave all these like kudos to James for being like the #1 man on the show and stuff like that. And but like James has really changed a lot in the last couple of years. In fact, James is probably one of the reasons why I still watch Vanderpump Rules, and I love Allie, his girlfriend. I love her so much. I hope they make it for the long haul. I really do. And this is so funny. I'm talking about Charlie, who was like on one season and people forgot. I said, why is Charlie as a server all of a sudden a main castmate when these people don't even go into Sir? Which is true, right? Ever. And I said, Brock came in so strong, Shorts didn't even get this much airtime in season 1. And that is one thing I will say is interesting, is if you go back and you watch it from season 1, like, Schwartz did not work at Sir. So he wasn't, like, do you remember, like, he started coming in when he was going to bartend for Lisa. He bartended, like, an event for her, and then he ended up working at Pump, like, for their opening, and then he had, like, the panic attack, and he couldn't do it. That's when we really started seeing Schwartz. Like, he dated Katie, so we saw that at the beginning, but also, like, he wasn't a main cast member. He was, like, a friend of, right? Brock came in right out of the gate and was like getting confessionals and whatever. And it's like they are so struggling for like strong personalities on this show. And then the introduction of Raquel to Vanderpump Rules. And my note that I have here is, as a server, Raquel, and you're talking about espresso martinis, it's espresso, not espresso. Just so you know, Rachel, okay? It's espresso, and I don't even drink. I haven't had a drink since 1994. It's espresso martini, not espresso martini. But you're a server, so I just wanted to let you know that. Okay. And then, I put on here, people keep saying it was a mistake. A mistake is misspelling something or getting a math problem wrong. It's not continuing to have an ongoing emotional and physical affair. Unless you've experienced it, you have no idea the betrayal that goes along with it. The lying is worse than the act, period. And I think that's the thing. You know, it's interesting seeing this whole thing with Ariana. I don't think Ariana will be on it next season, because I do think that her inner peace is more important. If she's on it next season, then she's done a lot of work behind the scenes, because I don't think it's healthy for Ariana, she has said this, to be in the same space with Tom. Well, that's like Melissa and Teresa on The Real Housewives of New Jersey not being able to film together. I mean, you can't really have a show where you're doing that and it's going to work unless the show is about that. And I don't think anybody wants to keep, I don't want another season of talking about Scandal, okay? I do think, and I think it's interesting, it's like when Lala said, she can expect that all these people not have relationships with them, and she doesn't have to film with them on the show, which I totally respect anybody that has boundaries, and I am Team Ariana all day long, and I respect everything that she says on the show. And she actually, when you watch the confessionals and stuff, she's not really that hardcore on Tom. It's more when she's sitting there, she's just like, I think he's a POS and what he did to me and whatever, but like, she doesn't say some of the things that, like, I mean, I've had girlfriends of mine that are cheated on to that length. I mean, 10 years later, they're still wanting to get their ex's balls, like, by the nutcrackers, okay? It's not like, Ariana's pretty cool, calm, and collected through the show. There's a few moments that she has, but people expect her to get it over it so quick. And then people are like, well, she was starting to date 10 days into this. And she's like, no, and there's a lot of speculation about behind the scenes and was this a setup and things like that. Tom Sandoval even said he was offended by that. But she came out and said, I met him at 10 days. We didn't start dating for like 3 months. And so there's a lot about that. The other thing is that social media ruins so much, because the things that we're seeing on Vanderpump Rules are things that happened a year ago. And a year ago, they were talking about it on social media, so we already know it. It's not even exciting to watch anymore. I'm so bored of it. I'm so over Vanderpump Rules. I'm so over Scandival. I feel bad for Ariana. I think it's the healthiest thing. But when Lala said she doesn't want to film with him on the show, she doesn't want any of us to be friends with him, but she still lives in the same house, I was like, well, you can't tell somebody what to do with their own betrayal, but at the same time, the filming thing, I do think that that's a fair point. She doesn't want to film with Tom Sandoval. She doesn't want him anywhere where she's filming or any scenes, even though she did the beach scene, and she did Sheena's party at the end, Kyle Chin's party at the end that Sheena performed at. She was there with him. He sat down there. He said hi to her boyfriend. Is it Dan, I think, and stuff like that. But other than that, she doesn't really want to film with him. He like walks over and interrupts her and Sheena talking and things like that. I do think that's a fair statement to say, you live in a house with him, but you don't want to film with him, right? And so I also think it's a fair statement for her to say that he could have texted her or sent her an email or anything like that. Now, Tom said on Watch What Happens Live that he did do that. He said he did reach out to Ariana and she never wanted to hear it. So I don't know what the truth is. I think a lot will come out in the reunion. I'm excited to watch. I love any reunion, so I'm excited to watch reunion. But in all honesty, I kind of hope this is the last season of Vanderpump Rules. I hope they're just kind of done with it at this point. The show's dead. You know, I don't know, give Katie and Ariana their own show and let Sheena and Lala move to the Valley and give Tom and Tom their own show or something. I'm just over it. It's like, it's not working anymore and it's not even enjoyable to watch. It's just really kind of sad to watch, you know? Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.